Hey everybody, today's session talks about mummies, climate change, and transition words. I'll start by reading the article I've chosen by the Washington Post. Then I will go back through the article explaining the vocabulary, and finally I'll talk a little bit about how the author uses transition words to explain how mummies and climate change are connected. So let's get by reading the article. It's titled, Even Mummies Have to Deal with Climate Change. It's by the Washington Post, but it's been adapted by the News English Language Arts staff. So, about 7,000 years ago, a group of people called the Chinchorro lived along the coasts of northern Chile and southern Peru. Their lives revolved around fishing in the Pacific Ocean. Yet just behind them, farther inland, was a desert, the Atacama, which has often been called the driest place on the planet. The Chinchorro were unique in many ways, but most of all in how they buried their people. They created the oldest known mummies on Earth, beating the Egyptians by several thousand years. In fact, in 1917, Chinchorro mummies were first discovered in the Atacama Desert. The Chinchorro mummified their dead much like the Egyptians did, yet there were some differences. While the Egyptians considered only kings and other important citizens worthy of mummification, wrote Bernardo Arriaza, an expert on the mummies, the Chinchorro mummified everyone, regardless of age or status. Newer mummies are not in great shape. Since 1917, hundreds of mummies have been dug up, and more are being uncovered all the time. However, lately there's been a problem. The mummies have started to decay. For instance, more than 100 are stored at the Museum of Universidad de Tarapacá in Arica, Chile, and the tissue change is reflected in the appearance of dark and bright spots. Marcela Sepulveda, an archaeologist at the university, explains. While the mummies indoors at the museum have been slow to decay, the mummies outdoors are being discovered already damaged, Sepulveda explains. She said that, when one digs up the mummies, you can see they are already harmed. The suspected reason? A changing climate. The Earth is slowly getting warmer, and storm patterns have changed. Scientists blame humans burning oil, gas, and coal as the cause of some of the changes. More rain's not always good. Arica is often called the driest place on Earth, but now locals say that's changing. According to Sepulveda, the city has seen more rain, snow, and humidity as of late. In fact, weather records from 1971 to 2000 suggest it has become wetter than usual. This may not be a change that can be definitively blamed on global climate change caused by humans, Ralph Mitchell, Harvard University biologist, cautioned. In spite of the inconclusive cause, the climate is changing all the same. For instance, our colleagues in northern Chile say Chilean scientists have also noticed that the place is foggy a lot more than it ever was, Mitchell said. For these reasons, he teamed up with Chilean researchers to figure out what was ailing the mummies. Mitchell discovered that many mummies found in the 1980s had no problems until 10 years ago. At that point, they started to fall apart. This fact alone suggests that climate may be a part of the reason for what is happening. So, Mitchell and two other researchers from Harvard collaborated with Sepulveda to figure out what was going on. They had a theory. More moisture from the air had enabled bacteria to start to eat away at the mummies. They studied samples of mummy skin and dried pig skin in various conditions. They examined which tiny organisms were living on and in the skin. Mitchell said they found that bacteria were taking advantage of a more humid environment. The bacteria were using the skin as a nutrient and starting to break it down. In essence, they were able to live on the skin because of the change in environmental conditions. Not only mummies at risk. The story of the Chinchorro mummies illustrates just how at risk many cultural artifacts may be to a changing climate, whether it is caused by humans or not. For this reason, the United Nations has thought about solving this problem for some time. Its UNESCO agency names certain places as World Heritage Sites because of their importance to nature or culture. Notably, a 2007 report from the UN agency noted that climate change is affecting many sites and will likely touch many more, both natural and cultural, in the years ahead. In addition to the UN, the U.S. Agency for International Development is also concerned about how climate change can affect cultural sites. They describe that buildings in the rare medieval city of Leh in Ladakh, India, were constructed in a high-altitude desert environment and are ill-suited to current increases in precipitation. In other words, the buildings were not made to handle a lot of rain. Archaeology magazine listed yet another example. The burial mounds of Scythian warlords, called kurgans, had been frozen and preserved in permafrost near Siberia, Russia. In this case, it was ice, not desert, that had preserved remains for such a wonderfully long time. Now that the Arctic is thawing, the ice protecting them melts, and these irreplaceable artifacts could be lost. Moreover, Mitchell even suspects that there could soon be a new climate victim, outdoor marble statues, such as those found in Greece and Rome. Still a mystery. While we may not know exactly what's happening in Arica, Chile, or whether or not humans are to blame, we do know these artifacts and sites are being damaged. The reason many of these sites have been so well preserved for so long is that they were unaffected by climate, where the surroundings stayed the same. However, if the climate continues to change, the world could certainly lose much of its historical artifacts.